How's it going, everybody? So today in this video I want to talk a little bit about why science is important. So I'm a pretty open-minded guy. I'm very interested in a vast variety of subjects. I have entertained the idea of astrology, although I don't fully believe in it, obviously. I'm into nutritional medicine and herbalism and holistic healing, which means addressing psychiatric issues, using psychology, using methods of nutrition, well, for diseases, for example, using nutrition, using psychology and therapy, using exercise, using herbs, and then if need be, pharmaceutical drugs and surgeries, obviously. I'm into a lot of so-called, anti-science ideas, although nutritional healing isn't necessarily anti-science. But anyway, I'm into a lot of things from all different, varieties of things. A lot of things that I study might not be like scientific or whatever, but at the same time, I understand science is extremely important, and the scientific method is very important to human existence and progression as a species and as civilization. So, what is science exactly? Science is the practice, is a systematic practice of understanding the natural world through observation, experimentation, research, and collecting data. Okay? At least that's my summarized version. But it's a system using experimentation, observation, collecting facts in order to learn more about our environment. It does not operate in absolute facts, but what it does is try to help us see what is probably true, what is most likely true, and what is probably not true, right? What is probably nonsense. Okay? It's very important that we have this, because without science, we can literally believe anything. Okay? Before science became a thing, before science evolved into what it is today, modern science, we had like, for example, like tribes, like there still are indigenous tribes, like in Africa, right? Like, let's say like there's an uncivilized indigenous tribe who's living on an island, and they see a helicopter above them or an airplane. To them, they might think that it's an alien, from another planet. They may think it's a god of some kind. They might even document it as a god. They might write like books with pictures of the plane or the helicopter and claim it's like the god of air or heavens or something. And that's their interpretation of it. Now, they don't have any way of knowing, for sure what it is. They don't have any way of knowing what it probably is or probably is not. They only have their best estimate, their best guess, based on the evidence that they have. The only evidence they have is, it's a unknown object flying in the air. Never seen anything like that. It looks like a bird, but it's too big to be a bird. It looks like a machine. They probably don't even know what a machine is. Okay? That's the only evidence they have. Speculation will run wild, but they have no way of knowing, what it probably is or anything like that. So all they have is guesses. So without science, That's literally what civilization would resolve to. Just estimated guesses, which some of them might be true, right? But a whole lot of hokey, I guess you could say. A whole lot of nonsense. Really take the time to think about that because, you know, when I first started to get into research and philosophy and things, I used to believe that science was, nonsense and science just keeps people's minds closed because I didn't understand what science was. And because most people thought alternative medicine was anti science or was nonsense, you know. But the interesting thing is, the majority of the scientific community generally accepts the concepts involved in alternative medicine, depending on what exactly we're talking about here, what type of alternative medicine. There's a lot of science that actually backs it up. Actually, the vast majority of it does. And what I realized is I wasn't angry at science. What I was angry at was dogma. Okay, science is very important to keep us away from Neanderthal caveman mentality. Like, oh, I got, like that bee landed on me, and it shot me with its magic powers, and now I'm hurting, no, actually the bee just stung you. It's simple biology. That's its defense mechanism. Without science, we wouldn't know that. We could think it's like a magical power. We might not even know it's a bee. We might think it's some type of it could be, we could think that God is punishing us or something when we get a bee sting. Science is very important to keep us away from that thinking. And a lot of nonsense beliefs that are just not true can actually harm us in some cases, and in a lot of cases it can limit us. For example, if we believe there's a heaven, well, then all of our suffering in this life, we could just think like, oh, it's okay, my relationship sucks, my career sucks, but one day I'm going to go to heaven, and as long as I pray to God every night, I'm promised a better life in heaven. But when you're on your deathbed, you might have a ton of regrets and wish that you would have fixed your actual life while you had it, because now you're not sure if you're actually going to go to heaven or not. And heaven could be like this promised land in your mind, but you don't know if it even exists. But your whole life, your justification for living a mediocre life was that, oh, heaven is going to be better. So unscientific beliefs can harm us or limit us. We always have to think about, how is this benefiting me? But the problem with that there's a big problem in some facets of science with dogma and closed-mindedness, and it only holds us back from progressing further. For example, people that believe that food has no impact on health, or by changing your diet won't help you reverse the disease or improve your symptoms. Doctors, the majority of doctors wouldn't say that, but there's a lot that think that nutritional healing is bullshit. That pharmaceutical drugs are the only way. They might think that the herbs and supplements are dangerous, and drinking herbal tea is unlikely to have any benefit on disease, and blah blah blah. Like, that's thinking that way is dogmatic. It's nonsense. It's ignorant, and it's not supported by science, and it only holds us back from progressing further, because you're kind of behind in the scientific literature, and you're spreading misinformation that is not up to date with the current literature. Anyway, as long as you remove yourself from dogma and you entertain things that might not be supported by science, but you accept the validity of science and understand why it's important, then you're good. So leave your questions and comments. Let me know what you think down below. Love to hear your thoughts, and I'll talk to you soon.